Today, we're going to change the oil. It seems like oil changes are getting more and more expensive. And if you could do it yourself, if you got just the basic tools, you can do it yourself, dispose of the oil, and save yourself a little bit of money. Basically, what you want to do is get a jack and lift the front of the vehicle up. What you're going to need is floor jack, or you could even use the jack that came with your vehicle. A couple of jack stands for safety, a drain pan, funnel, your new oil filter, and contraption to help dispose of the oil. Also got some shop towels and a little bit of cleaner. Now what we'll do is we'll get the jack and jack up the front of the vehicle. And in most cases, and I'll show you this, the drain plug is going to be on the back side of the oil pan. If you lift the front of the vehicle up, it tilts everything towards the rear. And that's important because you're going to want to drain as much, if not all, of the old oil and replace it with new. Got the front of the vehicle lifted, and when you're jacking, if you've never done that before, make sure that you always chock your rear wheel, and just in case, so the vehicle isn't going to be rolling back. Now the jack stand underneath there, and my vehicle's lifted, so I do have the tire still touching the ground, but we've got a little bit of room to get on the creeper and get underneath there to get to the oil drain plug. This takes a 13mm socket. Now you could also put some cardboard down on your driveway or on the floor in case you're worrying which way that oil is going to be coming out. Yeah. Alright, here we go. And what you want to do is press up against the oil pan as you're unscrewing that, and then it just comes out. And situate your oil pan so that your drain is like towards the middle of that deal. And also make sure that your collection pan isn't cracked, because that'd be messy. Also, while that's draining, it's usually a good idea to pop your hood, and this is where the oil is going to go in, is to loosen that up because there could be a vacuum, if you would. It just makes it a lot easier for that oil to flow. Okay, so once the oil has pretty much drained out, go ahead and put your drain plug back in. And don't do like some of these oil change places do, because they will put that drain plug on there so tight with like an impact gun. It's ridiculous. I mean, you don't want to break the head off of that. It just makes your day a whole lot rougher. So get it on there, give it a good tug, and then we'll just wipe up some of that oil. And if you've got a lot of oil underneath there, it's a good time to get in there with some degreaser or what have you to kind of clean that mess up. We've got the oil, most of the oil drained out. Now we also have an oil filter, and if you see down there, there's a black oil filter that needs to be changed out as well. And so on this particular vehicle, it's down there. Some of the newer vehicles, it'll be up here somewhere, and it could actually have a plastic top that you would unscrew and pull off, and it's a paper filter that you would have to pull out. This one is a metal filter on the bottom, and so we're going to have to go in from the bottom to unscrew it, and there will be oil in there. So we're going to have to move that catch pan underneath it, and it's not as neat with the oil coming out of it as it was from the drain plug itself. So we'll crawl back up underneath the vehicle and get that oil filter off. Okay, so right now there's the oil filter, and this is the front of the engine. That is where the catch pan is for the drain plug back there. So we're going to have to move this here, because the way that oil is going to fall out is going to be kind of, well, hopefully it'll be straight down. But with the wind and everything else, I mean, it is a little bit windy today, but I'm going to try to situate this as best as I can. Now, when you install these, it should only be hand tight. So you would think that undoing it by hand should be easy, but what happens is there's a rubber seal at the top of that oil filter, so you may have to use an oil filter wrench like this, and this is kind of bent out of shape, but it'll fit. So I'm going to fit this around here. And as I pull it, it's going to tighten. There we go. Okay. As soon as it gets loose, you want to pull that oil filter wrench off there because it'll get in the way. And you might want to have some rags ready or whatever, but what I generally like to do is just loosen up a little bit, and the oil should start coming out. There it goes. And now it's getting all over my steering suspension, so I'll have to clean that. But once you get enough of that oil comes out, the rest of that oil is in the bottom of that filter and it's full, so you just want to kind of keep that in mind. And then when you pull it out, make sure that you keep it as upright as possible. Now some oil filters are going to be where they're horizontal, and you're not going to really be able to help that. So in that case, when you loosen it up just like I did, make sure that catch can is under there real well to catch as much of that oil as possible. And just like the drain plug, when I was pulling it out, I was pushing it towards the oil pan. You'll want to do the same thing here, because I've never gotten this right. It just breaks loose. So you want to make sure that you got there. See, it just broke loose. See how that oil's coming out? And you just want to turn it upside down like that, drain the rest of the oil out. Now my particular vehicle takes almost 6 quarts of oil. What we're going to want to do is put the new oil filter on, but we'll have to put oil in the oil filter and then put it back up there, so it's preloaded. And the last thing you want is to start an engine that's got no oil in it. There's a lot of moving parts, and that oil keeps that metal moving parts you know, as frictionless as possible, so you don't have metal wear in your engine. That's not a good thing at all. So doing a little bit of cleanup here, and I'll get more of that cleaned up, but wanted to get all the drippies out of the way. So here's the new oil filter, and you see there's this rubber seal. What we're going to want to do is put oil in that hole and fill it up as much as we can, holding it upright. And then we're also going to put oil on this rubber gasket, and then we're going to screw it back up there. Got the new oil filter with oil in it, and I've put oil on the rubber gasket. See how the oil's kind of spilling out. Now it's not full, but it's as full as I want to get it, and you still see he got oil coming out. Now the trick here is to make sure you hold it up against there until it catches the threads, and then you just hand tighten it. But now it's slick, so I'm going to clean that off with some shop towels and probably spray some of that simple green on there to get it where it's not so slick, and then I can tighten it more, where again it's supposed to be just hand tight. Now you want to refer to your owner's manual of your particular vehicle, and if you don't have a owner's manual, like a lot of people don't on older vehicles, then just look it up on Google and look up several different sources, so you know, you just don't get one source. We got all that taken care of. Now we're going to refill the crankcase with new engine oil, But before we do that, we're going to have to make sure we lower the vehicle, because the vehicle needs to be as level as possible so that you put the right amount of oil in there. The last thing you want to do is overfill the engine with oil. So we're going to add a little bit, add a lot of it actually, and then we're going to check the engine oil, and then we'll add more as necessary to get it up to the full line, and I'll show you how to do that. This is the engine oil. So what you want to do is pull it all the way out, and it'll show you where the oil is on this dipstick. It says do not overfill. That's upside down, but do not overfill. And this right here is the full mark. That says safe, and this says add. So right now we don't have any engine oil in here. It's very, very little. So you want to make sure you've got enough. So what I'm going to do is add engine oil, and then we'll check the dipstick to make sure that we've got the right amount of oil in there. Go ahead and take that dude off, put a funnel in there. I'm not one of these guys that's able to fill without a funnel, because I don't want to create a mess. Just take your time. Now this is 5 quarts here. And I'm going to add most of this. Now the proper way to check it is to start your vehicle and then shut it off, and then check your engine oil. Now I've put, and usually on every oil bottle there's a sight gauge here, and I don't know if you can see that, but I've put in about 4, almost 4 out of the 5 quarts, okay? So I'm gonna put in, and I know that this holds more than 5 quarts, but I'm gonna go ahead and fill up as much as I can, but I'm probably not gonna empty out this bottle. So I'm gonna go ahead and crank it. Now, we don't really have to get it up to operating temperature. As you can tell, the engine's still warm anyway. It's showing about a quarter of the way. It generally is supposed to set at about 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll just let it circulate for a few minutes, and then we'll check the engine oil. And let's check the dipstick and make sure that we're good. All right, we are good to go. Can't really see it because that engine oil is so much clearer. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's easy to check the dipstick sideways, and you'll see that the oil is right there at the full mark. So we are good to go. Now, what do we do with this mess here? Well, I'll show you my setup and how I get that dirty, nasty oil into containers and take to O'Reilly's to get rid of. All right, so I showed you my little doohickey here, and I'm gonna start, these are empty, so I'm gonna put a funnel in here because that's a whole lot of oil that I got to pick up, and hopefully I don't drop it everywhere. Now before I do that, I'm gonna grab my old oil filter and set it in the bucket. And this funnel isn't the best size. I mean, it gets in there, but it's not the best size. So key here is to be gentle and hold this over the bucket as much as you can. Get a rag, wipe this so it doesn't get all over my driveway. Set that down. Headed to O'Reilly's where I go to dump all my used oil. But basically, you just go on back to the back, past the service counter, and generally speaking, when you're bringing oil in, they know. And you basically fill out your information on a clipboard about how many quarts or gallons you're looking at disposing of. And you know, some places the employees will pour the oil down into their big vat, or you know, other stores will require you to do that. Then the oil filter generally goes in a drum. So that's just how you do it. Just getting rid of used oil. I mean, it's pretty simple. You could do it there at AutoZone. A lot of different places collect used oil. So anyway, hopefully you learned something, especially if you've never done an oil change before. And just to kind of give you an idea on cost, you know, I've got the tools and everything. The oil, you know, I'm in $27, right? And then just a little bit of elbow grease and then disposing of oil. But if you go to these quick, you know, 10-minute oil places or anywhere else, you're looking at spending $45 or up. I don't really have a clue. I know it's more than I want to pay. And especially if you've got an older vehicle, you probably want to change your oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, depending on, you know, how old your vehicle is and what your vehicle recommendation is. Or I think it's at least every 6 months, because oil does break down over a period of time. You know, it's worth it for me, especially when I've got 4 different vehicles that I'm working on at any given time or doing maintenance on. It saves me money. And I appreciate you stopping by my channel and checking it out.